I didn't know she was my mom's best friend. If I had known, I would have never leaned against the kitchen counter like an idiot, smiled like a wannabe flirt, and said, "Wow, if you're here to fix the sink, I don't mind if you stay forever." She turned slowly. Elegant, calm, beautiful, in a way that made my brain stop working. She looked me up and down, not shocked, not offended. "Oh, and what exactly would I be staying for?" That's when my mom walked in. "Oh, good. You met Auntie Vivian." My soul left my body. Auntie Vivian, my mom's best friend of 20 years. The woman who used to carry me as a baby. And I had just flirted with her like a random girl from Instagram. She smiled at me, not kindly, T angrily. T like she had just discovered a very interesting secret. And I knew, right there, my life was about to become very complicated. The woe T part about embarrassing yourself in front of a beautiful woman is not. It's the memory. It replays constantly in HD. Her calm eyes, that slow, amused smile, the way she said nothing, but somehow said everything. For the rest of that day, I avoided the living room like it was haunted, because she was there, sitting comfortably beside my mom on the couch, legs crossed elegantly, laughing at stories from the old days. Stories that included me as a toddler who used to run around naked after baths. I wanted to disappear into the wall. Every time I walked past, I could feel it. Her eyes following me, not in a creepy way, in a knowing way. Like we shared a secret that my mom had no idea about. And she was enjoying it. I tried to act normal. I really did. I came out to grab water, pretending to be very busy on my phone. That's when I heard it soft smooth right behind me. "My little flirt needs water too." I froze mid-step. My mom didn't react, which meant Vian had said it quietly. Just for me, I turned slowly. She was smiling into her teacup like she hadn't just shortened my lifespan by 10 years. "Mom, I'm going to my room," I muttered. "Why? Come sit with us," my mom said. Vivian patted the empty space beside her. Beside her? Not the other couch, not the chair. Right beside her. I considered faking a stomachache. But my mom was already looking at me suspiciously, so I walked over and sat too stiff, too careful, like I was sitting beside a live electric wire. Vivian didn't move away. In fact, she leaned slightly closer, not enough for my mom to notice, but enough for me to smell her perfume. Soft, warm, dangerous. "You're very quiet now," she said casually, still facing my mom. "Earlier you were quite confident." I nearly choked on air. My mom laughed. "Confident? This one, please." She can't even order food without stuttering. Vivian glanced at me from the corner of her eye. That smile again. "Oh, I think she can be very confident when she wants to be." I knew exactly what she meant. And I knew she knew I knew this was psychological warfare, and I was losing. The teasing didn't stop there. Every small thing became a secret joke. "When I got up to grab snacks," she said softly as I passed, careful. "Don't trip. You wouldn't want to fall for me again." I stumbled. Actually stumbled. My mom turned. "Are you okay?" Vivian sipped her tea calmly like she had done nothing. I realized something very important in that moment. She wasn't embarrassed. She wasn't uncomfortable. She was entertained by me. Later that evening, my mom went to the kitchen to answer a phone call. And for the first time since the incident, Vivian and I were alone in the living room. Silence fell like a heavy blanket. I suddenly became very interested in the pattern on the rug. "Look at me," she said gently. I didn't want to, which is exactly why I did. Her expression wasn't teasing this time. It was curious, studying me, like I was a puzzle she had just discovered. "Do you always flirt before asking for someone's name?" she asked. "I didn't know who you were," I blurted. She laughed softly. A beautiful, low laugh. That's what makes it adorable. Adorable. I didn't know if I should be offended or flattered. Probably both. "Relax," she added. "I'm not going to tell your mother." My eyes widened. "Please don't." She tilted her head slightly. "Why? Afraid she'll find out you have a bold side?" I swallowed. She leaned back into the couch, satisfied. "Don't worry. Your secret is safe with me." Little flirt. I didn't like how much my heart reacted to that nickname. From that day forward, she never called me by my name. Not once. It was always little flirt, troublemaker, bold girl, and she said them softly privately, like pet names that only we understood. And the worst part, I started waiting to hear them. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, thinking about how her voice sounded when she teased me, thinking about how her eyes lingered, thinking about how she didn't look at me like a kid. She looked at me like I was interesting, and that thought refused to let me sleep. Because for the first time since the embarrassment, I wasn't just mortified, I was curious, very, very curious. The house was quiet in that late night way that makes every sound feel louder than it is. The fridge humming, the clock ticking, my own footsteps on the tiles. I wasn't even thirsty. I just couldn't sleep. And unfortunately for me, my brain had decided the best thing to do at 12:17 a.m. was replay every single moment Vivian had teased me earlier. Little flirt, I groaned into the darkness of the hallway. Why did she have to say it like that? Soft, calm, almost affectionate. I reached the kitchen and flicked on the light and nearly screamed. She was already there, leaning against the counter like she owned the place. Silk pajamas, dark navy, the kind that moved when she breathed. Her hair wasn't tied up like earlier. It fell loosely over her shoulders, slightly messy, like she had been trying to sleep too. For a moment, neither of us spoke. We just stared at each other, like two people caught doing something suspicious, even though all we were doing was existing in the same kitchen. I just came for water, I said quickly. She raised an eyebrow. I didn't accuse you of anything. Her voice was lower at night, softer, warmer. I walked to the fridge, very aware of how close she was. The kitchen suddenly felt smaller than usual, like the walls had quietly shifted in. I poured water into a glass, trying very hard to act like a normal human being who was not painfully aware of a beautiful older woman standing 3 steps away in silk pajamas. Silence stretched. Then she spoke. So tell me, I froze. Do you flirt with all older women you meet, or am I special? The glass slipped slightly in my hand and water splashed onto the counter. She laughed quietly, not loudly, not mockingly, but like she was genuinely enjoying this. I didn't know you were, I started. Old? She supplied smoothly. No, I mean, my mom's friend, she stepped closer. Not aggressively, not fast. Just one calm step that made my brain stop working. You started this, sweetheart. Sweetheart. I forgot how words worked. I forgot why I was in the kitchen. I forgot how to breathe normally. She leaned back against the counter beside me, crossing her arms casually. You looked very confident this afternoon, she continued. What happened to that girl? She died? I muttered. She smiled. Pity. I liked her. My heart did something very illegal inside my chest. I tried to drink the water to look busy. She watched me. Actually watched me like I was a show. You're nervous around me, she observed. I'm not, I lied immediately. She tilted her head. You spilled water. That was the glass's fault. She laughed again. That soft, dangerous laugh. She did something small. Something so small it shouldn't have mattered. Reached over and wiped the water off the counter with a napkin. But her hand brushed mine in the process. Lightly. Barely. And my entire body reacted like I had been struck by lightning. She noticed. Of course she noticed. Her eyes flicked to my hand, then back to my face. And her smile changed. It wasn't teasing anymore, it was knowing. Interesting, she murmured. I didn't ask what she meant I didn't want to know. Because I had a feeling the answer would ruin my life. We stood there in silence for a moment, just the fridge humming between. Then she asked, I didn't know, casually, how old are you now? 19. She nodded slowly. That lasted way too long. What does that mean? I asked. It means, she said calmly, you're not a child anymore. I didn't know why that sentence made my stomach flip, but it did. I finished the water even though I wasn't thirsty anymore. I needed an excuse to leave before my heart burst out of my chest. As I turned to go, she spoke again, softly. Good night, little flirt. I paused, looked back at her. She was smiling at me gently now, not teasing, not sharp, just warm. And somehow that was even worse. "Good night," I managed. I walked out of the kitchen, feeling like my legs weren't attached to my body. That night, I didn't sleep. I kept replaying the way she said sweetheart, the way she said I wasn't a child anymore, the way her hand brushed mine and she noticed. And a terrifying realization slowly formed in my mind. She wasn't just teasing me for she was studying me, learning me, and somehow, I had a feeling she liked what she was discovering. The next morning, I woke up feeling like I had run a marathon in my dreams. My brain was tired, my heart was tired, and my pride completely finished. I stayed in my room longer than usual, hoping, praying, that Vivian had already left. Maybe she had an early meeting, maybe she got bored. Maybe the universe had decided to show me mercy. I opened my door quietly and listened, voices, in the kitchen, laughing, my mom's loud, familiar laugh, and Vivian's soft one right after. Of course she was still here. I contemplated going back into my room and living there permanently, but hunger is a powerful enemy. So I walked into the kitchen, pretending to be a person who had not had an emotional crisis over a woman in silk pajamas at midnight. My mom was making breakfast. Vivian was sitting at the counter, legs crossed, sipping coffee like she belonged there, like she belonged in my thoughts. Her eyes lifted the moment I walked in, and that smile appeared. Not wide, not obvious, just for me. "Good morning, little flirt." She said it so softly my mom didn't catch it, but I did. I nearly walked into the fridge. "Morning," I croaked. My mom turned. "You look terrible. Did you sleep late again?" Before I could answer, Vivian did. "She looks like she didn't sleep at all." I stared at her. She took a calm sip of coffee, completely unbothered. She knew. She absolutely knew. I grabbed bread just to have something to do with my hands. My mom suddenly turned to Vivian. "Oh, Vivian, can you drop by the tailor today? I forgot to pick up my dress, and I won't have time after work." Vivian nodded, of course, then my mom turned to me. "And you're free today. You can drive her." I froze mid-bite. Vivian didn't react, which made it worse. What? I said. "Don't want me. It's on your way to the mall anyway. I don't want her using a taxi." I looked at Vivian, silently begging her to refuse. She smiled at me, slowly. "I don't mind the company." That was the moment I knew. God had abandoned me. 40 minutes, whole minutes, in a car, alone. I considered faking a fever, but my mom was already handing me the car keys. The car ride started painfully quiet. I focused very hard on the road. Very, very hard. Like if I looked away for 1 second, I would crash into a tree and it would somehow still be less embarrassing than this. Vivian, on the other hand, was completely relaxed. Adjusted the seat, played with the radio, looked out the window, like this was the most normal thing in the world. Meanwhile, my heart was performing gymnastics. After 5 minutes of silence, she spoke. "You're very serious today. I'm driving. You can talk and drive. Most humans can." I sighed. "What do you want me to say?" She turned slightly in her seat to face me, and I want to hear the confident girl from the kitchen counter again. I almost swerved. "That girl retired," I muttered. She chuckled. "That's unfortunate." I was starting to like her. Why did she keep saying that? Why did she keep making it sound like she was disappointed I wasn't flirting with her? At a red light, I made the mistake of glancing at her. She was already looking at me, not smiling, just watching, calm, curious, intense. I looked away immediately. She noticed. Of course she did. "You avoid eye contact when you're nervous," she observed. "I'm not nervous. You grip the steering wheel tighter." I loosened my grip instantly. She laughed softly. I hated how much I liked that sound. The rest of the ride felt like she was gently poking at me without actually touching me. Small comments, small observations, small smiles, and somehow each one made my chest feel tighter. When we finally reached the tailor shop, I felt like I had survived a psychological exam. She didn't get out immediately. She unbuckled her seatbelt slowly, then paused. "Can I ask you something?" I nodded. She tilted her head slightly. If I wasn't your mom's friend, would you have kept flirting with me? My brain stopped. Completely stopped. I didn't answer. Because the answer was yes. Very, very yes. She smiled when I didn't respond. That's what I thought. Then she opened the door and stepped out, leaving me in the car, staring at nothing, questioning every decision I had ever made in my life. When she came back 10 minutes later, she acted completely normal, like she hadn't just ruined my peace. As we drove back home, she said casually, "Be careful what you start, darling." I swallowed. She looked at me one last time before we reached the house. Some women don't like to lose, and I knew, without a doubt. This was no longer an accident. She was enjoying this far too much. And somehow, so was I. That night, I told myself I was going to forget her. I said it out loud while brushing my teeth. I will not think about Vivian. I will not think about Vivian. I will not think about. My phone buzzed on the sink. I froze. No one texted me past 10 p.m., except my best friend, and she had already sent her nightly. I wiped my hands slowly and picked up the phone. Unknown number. My heart started beating faster for absolutely no reason. I opened the message. "Did you sleep yet, little flirt?" I dropped the toothbrush. It hit the sink and bounced into the basin. I stared at the screen like it had personally offended me. There was no name saved, but I knew. No one else on this planet would call me that with such confidence. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. How did she get my number? Why did she have my number? Why was she texting me? Why was my heart acting like this was the most important message of my life? I typed, deleted, typed again, deleted again. I sent, "Who is this?" 3 dots appeared immediately. She had been waiting. That hurts my feelings. I swallowed. I thought we had something special. I pressed the phone to my forehead. Oh my God. Another message came. Or do you flirt with so many women that you can't keep track? I paced my... This woman was not normal. I typed, "How did you get my number?" She replied instantly. "Your mother gave it to me months ago in case of emergencies. I didn't realize you would become the emergency." I sat on the edge of my bed. This couldn't be real. This had to be a dream caused by stress and lack of sleep. I typed, "Why are you texting me?" She didn't reply for a full minute. That 1 minute felt longer than the car ride. Then, because you look like someone who overthinks at night, my stomach flipped. She had saved her name now. Vivian. I stared at it like it was dangerous. And I was right, wasn't I? I didn't know what to say, because she was right. I'd been overthinking her since the kitchen, the car, the couch, the teasing, the smiling. "You're quiet again." I typed before I could stop myself. "I don't know how to talk to you." She replied, "That's funny. Yesterday you had plenty of confidence." I groaned into my pillow. I missed that girl. Why did she keep saying? Why did it sound like she actually wanted me to flirt with her again? I typed carefully, "That girl didn't know you were my mom's best friend." She responded, and if she did, I stared at the screen for a long time. My brain said, "Don't answer that." My heart said, "Answer it." I didn't reply. 3 dots appeared. "Relax. I'm teasing you," I exhaled. Then my phone buzzed again, a little. I covered my face with my hand. This woman was going to be the end of me. The conversation didn't stop. It flowed easily. Surprisingly easily. She asked what I was doing. I told her I couldn't sleep. She said, "I figured you have restless eyes." I frowned at the screen. "How do you know that?" "You never blink when you're thinking too much." I paused. How had she noticed that? When had she noticed that? I realized something slowly. She had been watching me far more closely than I thought. Minutes turned into an hour. Then 2. We talked about random things. Music, movies, food. But every now and then, she slipped in something that made my heart race. You type fast when you're excited. You use too many dots when you're nervous. You're easier to read than you think. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, smiling like an idiot. Why was I smiling? This was ridiculous. This was dangerous. This was my mom's best friend. And yet, I was waiting for her next message like it was oxygen. At 1:43 a.m., she sent, "Are you behaving?" I laughed quietly. What does that even mean? It means, are you thinking about me instead of sleeping? I didn't reply. She sent another message. "Yo, silence is very loud, little flirt." I turned onto my side and buried my face into the pillow. She was enjoying this too much. And the worst part? So was I. Then she sent something that made my chest tighten. "You look nervous today." I liked it. I stopped smiling. I reread that message 3 times. It didn't sound like teasing. It sounded honest. I typed slowly. Why? She took longer to reply this time. Then, because you stop pretending when you're nervous. I didn't know why that hit me so deeply. Maybe because she was right. When I got flustered, I stopped trying to be cool. I became real, and she liked that. At 2:07 a.m., she sent, "You should sleep. You too." "I will." A pause. Then "Good night, little flirt." I stared at that message for a long time. Then I typed, "Good night, Vivian." She reacted with a heart. A simple heart. And somehow that felt more intimate than all the teasing combined. I placed the phone on my chest and stared at the ceiling in the dark. My room felt different, quieter. But my heart felt louder. Because now, the teasing wasn't just happening when she visited. It was following me into my private space, into my night, into my thoughts. And for the first time since this entire mess started, I realized something terrifying. I was looking forward to her text tomorrow. The next morning I woke up before my alarm, not because I was well rested, but because my brain remembered something before I even opened my eyes. The text, the heart reaction. I grabbed my phone immediately. No new messages. And for some reason, that disappointed me. I lay there staring at the ceiling, replaying the conversation from last night like it was my favorite movie. The way she typed. The way she noticed small things about me. The way she said goodnight. I had never had a goodnight feel that personal before. I rolled onto my side and groaned into my pillow. This is bad. This is very, very bad. Around noon, my mom announced that Vivian was coming over again, casually, like she was announcing the weather. "Oh, Vivian said she'll stop by to drop something off." I shot up from the couch so fast I almost scared the dog. "Why?" My mom blinked at me. "Why are you asking like that? No reason, just asking." She gave me a look. I immediately pretended to be very interested in the TV. But inside, panic had already started packing its bags. She was coming here. After last night, after the texts, after the heart, I suddenly became very aware of my appearance. My hair was a mess. I was wearing an old t-shirt. I smelled like laziness. I ran to my room. I changed shirts 3 times, brushed my hair twice, stared at myself in the mirror like I was preparing for a job interview. "Why do you care?" I asked my reflection. My reflection didn't answer, because we both knew the answer. When the doorbell rang, my heart did something dramatic. My mom went to open it. I pretended to walk casually into the living room like I had not been waiting there for the past 2 minutes pretending to scroll through my phone. Vivian walked in, calm, elegant, wearing a simple cream blouse and dark jeans, nothing fancy. And yet she still managed to look like she had stepped out of a movie scene. Her eyes found me immediately, and that smile appeared. Small, private, just for me. "Hello," she said warmly. "Hi," I replied, trying to sound normal and failing miserably. My mom didn't notice. She took the bag Vivian brought and went to the kitchen to check it, which meant, once again, we were alone. Vivian stepped close. Not too close, but close enough for me to smell her perfume again. That same warm scent from the couch, from the kitchen, from the car. "You look different today," she said. My brain short-circuited. Different how? Her eyes slowly scanned me from head to toe. Not in a creepy way, in a noticing way. "You're trying very hard." I felt heat crawl up my neck. "I'm not." She raised an eyebrow. "You changed your shirt." I froze. "How do you know that?" She smiled. "You wore a gray one yesterday." I stared at her. She remembered what I wore. Why did she remember what I wore? She leaned slightly closer and lowered her voice. "Is it for me?" My heart started beating so loudly I was sure my mom could hear it from the kitchen. I opened my mouth to deny it. Nothing came out. She watched me struggle, and for a moment she didn't tease. She just looked at me like she was genuinely fascinated. "You're very honest with your face," she murmured. I looked away immediately. She chuckled softly. My mom came back, breaking whatever spell had just formed between us. They started talking about random things. But Vivian chose the seat beside me again. Not the armchair not across the room. Beside me. Close enough that our arms almost touched. And every time she shifted slightly, I became hyper-aware of her presence. My mom was talking about something work-related. I wasn't listening, because Vivian leaned slightly toward me and whispered, "You're doing it again." I swallowed. "Doing what?" "Pretending you're not aware of me." I felt personally attacked. Later, when my mom went to answer another call, Vivian turned to me fully. Her expression changed, less playful, more curious. "Can I tell you something honestly?" I nodded slowly. You're starting to look at me differently. My breath caught. I'm not. She tilted her head. You are. She didn't sound teasing. She sounded certain. And I don't know if I should stop you or encourage. That sentence stayed in the air between us. Heavy, dangerous, real. Before I could respond, my mom returned, and Vivian went back to acting completely normal, like she hadn't just dropped a bomb in my chest. After she left, I sat in my room staring at nothing, because I had realized something I didn't want to admit. This wasn't just her teasing me anymore, and it wasn't just me being embarrassed anymore. I was starting to want her attention. I was starting to like when she noticed me. I was starting to look forward to the way she spoke to me, and that realization was far more terrifying than the flirting. Because this time, it wasn't an accident. A few days passed without her visiting, which should have made me feel relieved. Instead, it made me restless. The house felt normal again. Too normal. No soft voice calling me little flirt. No calm eyes watching me like I was an interesting puzzle. No teasing comments that made my brain stop working. Just silence and texts. Her messages didn't stop. If anything, they became more casual, more frequent, more comfortable. She sent me pictures of random things during her day. A cup of coffee with the caption, "This one isn't as sweet as you." A bookstore shelf, "You'd get lost here." A sunset from her car window, I typed, "You would overthink the sky." And somehow, every message felt like she was carrying me along with her day, like I was quietly there beside her, which made it worse, because I started missing her in person. Then one afternoon, my phone buzzed. "Are you busy?" I stared at the message for 10 full seconds before replying. "Not really." "Why?" 3 dots appeared. "I need help with something. Laptop issues. You're young. You understand these things." I narrowed my eyes at the screen. "You don't seem like someone who has laptop issues." Her reply came instantly. "Come to the cafe on Maple Street and find out." My heart skipped. A cafe. Not my house. Not my mom. Just, "You're inviting me out?" "Don't sound so shocked, little flirt." I didn't realize I was already getting dressed until I caught myself changing shirts again. The cafe smelled like coffee and warm bread. Soft music played in the background, and she was already there, sitting by the window, sunlight touching her hair just enough to make her look unreal. She wasn't on her laptop. She was just waiting for me. Her eyes lit up when she saw me walk in, and she smiled, that small, private smile that felt like a secret between us. "You came," she said. "Your laptop emergency sounded serious," I replied. She glanced at the empty table. "Ah, yes, my imaginary broken laptop." I stared at her. "You lied?" She shrugged elegantly. I needed an excuse. "You wouldn't have come otherwise." She said it so calmly, like inviting me out was the most natural thing in the world. Like we had been doing this for years. We ordered drinks, sat across from me. And for the first time, I noticed something new. She wasn't teasing me as much. She was watching me, listening to me, asking me questions about school, friends, things I liked. Actually listening to my answers. Leaning forward slightly when I spoke, smiling when I got animated, and somewhere between talking about my favorite movie and laughing over a stupid childhood story. I forgot she was my mom's best friend. I forgot she was off limits. I forgot I was supposed to be nervous. I just enjoyed being there with her. At some point, I got too comfortable. I laughed loudly at something she said and leaned back in my chair. She looked at me with an expression I hadn't seen before. Soft, warm, dangerous in a completely different way. "You're adorable when you forget I'm dangerous," she said quietly. My laughter faded. "What do you mean?" She stirred her coffee slowly. "You relax. You stop guarding yourself. You stop pretending." I swallowed. She looked at me like she was memorizing. "I like this version of you." That sentence hit harder than all her teasing combined. A girl from my class walked into the cafe. She waved at me excitedly. I waved back. Vivian's eyes followed the interaction carefully. "Friend?" she asked. "Yeah. She sits next to me in lectures." The girl came over, chatted for a bit, then left. But Vivian went quiet. Very quiet. She sipped her coffee slowly. "She seems fond of you." I shrugged. "She's like that with everyone." Vivian hummed softly, but her eyes didn't look casual anymore. They looked thoughtful, measured, almost jealous. When we stood up to leave, we walked side by side toward the exit. Our arms brushed accidentally, and neither of us moved away. We just kept walking like that. Close, aware, silent. Outside the cafe, she stopped to turn to face me, and for a moment, the playful energy was gone. "You don't realize what you're doing to me, do you?" My breath caught. What? She shook her head almost to herself. Nothing. Forget I said that, but I couldn't forget, because, for the first time, it didn't feel like she was teasing me. It felt like she was confessing something she didn't mean to say, and I went home with a strange, warm feeling in my chest. A feeling that scared me, because it no longer felt like a joke between us. It felt like the beginning of something real. The strange thing about feelings is that they don't arrive loudly. They don't knock. They don't announce themselves. They just quietly sit beside you until you suddenly realize they've been there for a while. That realization hit me 3 days after the cafe. I was lying on my bed, staring at my phone, smiling at a message Vivian had just sent. "You'd hate this song. It's too emotional for you." I typed back, "I like emotional songs." Her reply came almost instantly. "No, you pretend you don't, but you do." I smiled. Then I stopped smiling, because I realized something. She knew. Not in a casual way. Not in a my friend's daughter way. She knew how I thought, how I reacted, what I pretended to be, and what I actually was. And the thought made my chest feel too full. That evening, my mom mentioned casually that Vivian might come over for dinner. And instead of panic, I felt excitement. Actual excitement. I went to my room and stood in front of my wardrobe like this was a date. Because deep down, that's what it was starting to feel like. She arrived wearing a simple black dress, nothing dramatic. But the moment she stepped into the house, my brain went quiet. She smiled at my mom, then her eyes found me, and that familiar private smile appeared. "Hello, little flirt." I smiled back without even realizing. "Hi." My mom didn't notice, but Vivian did. She always did. Dinner was normal. Too normal. They talked about old stories. Work, family gossip. Every now and then, Vivian would glance at me across the table and hold the look for half a second too long, just enough to make my stomach flip. Halfway through dinner, my phone buzzed beside my plate. I glanced at it. A message from a girl in my class. "Hey, are you coming to the study group tomorrow? Also? You looked really nice today." I smiled slightly. Before I could reply, I felt it. Vivian watching me, I looked up, her eyes dropped to my phone, then back to my face. She didn't say anything, but something changed in her expression. Something subtle, something quiet, something sharp. After dinner, my mom went to take a call outside, and once again, the universe decided to leave us alone. Vivian leaned back in her chair, crossed her arms, and looked at me calmly. "Who's that?" I blinked. "What? The message that made you smile?" I hesitated. "Just a girl from my class." She nodded slowly. Too slowly. "She seems comfortable texting you at night." "It's not like that," I said quickly. Vivian tilted her head. "Like what?" I opened my mouth, closed it. I didn't know what "like what" even meant. She leaned forward slightly, her voice softer now. "Do you like her?" My heart skipped. "Not really." She studied my face carefully, like she was checking if I was lying. "Not really," she repeated. Then she leaned back again, but she didn't look relaxed. She looked thoughtful, quiet, almost bothered. The silence stretched. Then she said something that surprised me. "You should be careful who you give your attention to." I frowned. "Why?" She held my gaze. "Because not everyone deserves it." There was something deeper in that sentence, something she wasn't saying directly, and for some reason, it made me feel warm, because it sounded like she didn't want me giving my attention to someone else. I decided to test something small, something harmless. "There's actually someone who's been trying to ask me out," I said casually. Vivian's eyes flicked up instantly. "Oh?" I nodded. Yeah, she's been hinting for weeks. Vivian didn't interrupt, didn't react dramatically, but her fingers tightened slightly around the glass she was holding. And, she asked, I haven't said yes. She held my gaze. Why not? I shrugged. Didn't feel right. She didn't look away. Good. That one word slipped out before she could stop it. We both know. She cleared her throat lightly. I mean, you should be sure before you start anything with anyone. But it was too late. I had heard the first good, and I had seen the look in her eyes when she said, my chest felt strangely light, because now I knew. She wasn't just teasing me for fun. She didn't like the idea of me liking someone else, and that realization sent a quiet thrill through me, a dangerous one. When my mom came back inside, Vivian stood to leave. I walked her to the door, like I always did now. We stood there for a moment in the hallway, too close, too aware. She looked at me quietly. Don't play games with me, she said softly. I blinked. I wasn't. She searched my face. Good, her voice softened. Because I don't like losing, my breath caught. The same sentence from the car. But this time, it didn't sound like a joke. It sounded like a warning. And somehow, that made my heart beat even faster. The problem with tension is that it doesn't stay invisible forever. It starts leaking. Through glances, through pauses, through the way two people suddenly become very aware of each other in a room. And unfortunately for me, my mom was not blind. It started small. Why do you and Vivian go quiet when I enter the room? I almost dropped the spoon I was holding. We don't, I said too quickly. My mom squinted at me. You do. It's like I interrupt something every time. I laughed nervously. You're imagining things. She hummed in that suspicious mother way that meant she was not imagining anything. Vivian came over that evening, like she usually did. Calm, elegant, unbothered. But the moment she walked in, I could feel the difference. My mom was watching us, not obviously, but carefully. Studying the way Vivian greeted me, studying the way I responded. Vivian, of course, acted perfectly normal. She always did. That was the terrifying part. She had this ability to speak to me in a way that sounded innocent to others, but loaded to me. You look well rested today, she said. My mom smiled. She actually slept early for once. Vivian glanced at me. I'm glad. That was it. Just 2 words. But the way she said it made my ears burn, because we both remembered the nights we stayed up texting. We sat in the living room, the 3 of us, my mom in the armchair, Vivian beside me on the couch, too close, again. I tried to focus on the TV, but I could feel it, her arm just inches from mine, the warmth, the awareness. Then my mom said it, casually, dangerously. You two have gotten strangely close lately. I froze. Vivian didn't. She smiled calmly. She's easy to talk to. My mom raised an eyebrow. Is she? She barely talks to anyone at home. Vivian looked at me from the corner of her eye. She talks when she's comfortable. I swallowed. That was not a normal sentence. That was a sentence meant for... My mom leaned back and laughed. You two act like you're hiding something. My heart stopped. Completely stopped. Vivian laughed lightly. Smooth. Effortless. What could we possibly be hiding? She said it so naturally that even I almost believed her. My mom shook her head. I don't know. Just a strange vibe. A strange vibe. That's what this was. A vibe. A dangerous, emotional, impossible to explain vibe. Later that night, my mom went to the kitchen to grab drinks. And for the first time, Vivian didn't tease. She didn't smile. She didn't whisper. She just looked at me seriously. She's starting to notice, she said quietly. I nodded. My throat felt tight. What do we do? She held my gaze. Nothing. Her voice was calm, but there was something heavy in it. We act normal. I didn't know why that sentence made me feel disappointed, because I didn't want to act normal. Not anymore. My mom came back. Conversation resumed. But now, everything felt fragile, like we were walking on thin ice. One wrong move, One wrong glance, and everything would crack. When Vivian stood up to leave, I walked her to the door like always. But this time, the hallway felt different, quieter, tighter. She turned to face me. No smile, no teasing, just honesty. We need to be careful. My chest tightened. About what? She looked at me for a long moment. About how obvious this is becoming. I didn't breathe. She stepped a little closer. Not enough for anyone to see, but enough for me to feel it. You're starting to look at me like you don't know how to hide your feelings. That sentence hit me like a confession I didn't know I had made. I don't know how to hide them, I admitted softly. She exhaled slowly. And for the first time since this began, she looked conflicted. That's what worries me. Not because she didn't feel it, but because she did. She didn't leave immediately. Her hand was still on the door handle. Mine was still resting against the wall beside it. We were standing too close for two people who were acting normal. The hallway light was dim. The house was quiet behind us. And for a moment, neither of us moved. That's what worries me, she repeated softly. I swallowed. Why? She looked at me like she was choosing her words carefully, like every sentence now mattered. Because you don't know how dangerous honesty can be. I frowned slightly. I'm just being myself. A faint smile touched her lips. Exactly. That wasn't reassuring. Footsteps sounded faintly from inside the house. My mom! Vivian straightened instantly, composed, elegant, untouchable. The version of her the world saw. By the time my mom appeared in the hallway, Vivian was already smiling politely. I should get going, she said casually, like we hadn't just been standing in a moment thick enough to drown in. My mom hugged her, chatted for another minute, and I stood there, feeling like I had just lived through something invisible no one else could see. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about her words. You're starting to look at me like you don't know how to hide your feelings. I replayed every glance I had given her. Every time I looked at her too long, every time I forgot my mom was in the room. Had I really been that obvious? And if I had, what did that say about how I felt? My phone buzzed at 11:38 p.m. Did she say anything after I left? I replied instantly. No, just the usual. A pause. Then she's perceptive. I noticed. We need to be smarter. I stared at that message. We, not you, not me. We. That single word made my heart ache in a way I couldn't explain. I typed slowly. Are you scared? She didn't reply for almost 2 minutes. I watched the screen the entire time, then not of her. My chest tightened. Then what? The typing dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again, of how much I'm starting to care. I stopped breathing. I reread the message. Once, twice, 3 times. This wasn't teasing. This wasn't playful. This was real. Very real. I didn't know what to say, so I told the truth. I care too. Her reply came immediately. I know. That was I 2 words. But they carried more weight than everything we had said before. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling in the dark. And for the first time since this started, I wasn't confused. I wasn't embarrassed. I wasn't nervous. I was certain. This wasn't an accident anymore. This wasn't harmless teasing. This wasn't just attraction. This was something growing quietly between us. Something neither of us had planned, and something neither of us knew how to stop. The next time Vivian came over, something had changed, not in the house, not in the air, but in us. There was no more pretending this was light teasing or harmless fun. We had both said it now. I care too. And that truth sat quietly between us like a secret neither of us could She arrived in the evening. My mom greeted her like always. I stood in the hallway pretending I wasn't waiting for the sound of her voice. The moment she stepped inside, her eyes found me. And for the first time since this started, she didn't smile playfully. She looked at me softly, warmly, like someone looking at something precious. Hi, she said, just that, no nickname, no teasing. And somehow that felt more intimate than anything she had ever called me. Hi, I replied, equally quiet. My mom didn't notice the difference. But we did. Dinner was normal. But the silence between our words was louder. Every glance lasted longer. Every accidental brush of arms felt intentional. And my heart didn't race from embarrassment anymore, it raced from awareness. After eating, my mom got a call from a relative and stepped outside to take it. Vivian and I were left alone in the living room again. But this time, the silence didn't feel awkward, it felt... She didn't sit all the way back on the couch. She leaned forward slightly, elbows on her knees, hands clasped. like she had something important to say. "I tried to ignore this," she said quietly. My heart skipped. "I know." She looked at me. Her expression wasn't teasing. It wasn't amused. It was honest. "I really did." There was a softness in her voice I had never heard before. "I told myself you were just my friend's daughter, that you were just being playful." That I was reading too much into it, I swallowed. "But you weren't," I said. She shook her head slowly. "No, you weren't." A small, helpless smile appeared on her lips. "You made it very difficult to ignore." I felt warmth spread through my chest. Not nervous warmth, not awkward warmth, but something deeper. She looked at me like she was studying me again. But this time, there was no curiosity. There was affection. "I haven't felt like this in years," she admitted softly. That sentence hit me harder than anything, because this wasn't a game to her. This was real. "I'm not trying to make things hard for you," I said gently. She smiled faintly. "You're not." That's the problem. Silence settled again, but it felt different, comfortable, honest. She leaned back into the couch slowly, still looking at me. "Tell me something honestly." I nodded. "Is this just a crush for you?" The question hung in the air. Serious, important. I didn't rush my answer. I thought about it, about the texts, the cafe, the way I felt when she walked into a room, the way I waited for her messages, the way my chest tightened when she talked about me liking someone else. I shook my head. "No." Her eyes searched mine carefully. "Then what is it?" I took a breath. "It feels like, when I'm around you, I don't feel nervous anymore. I feel calm. I feel home." Her expression changed instantly. Like that was not the answer she expected. She went very quiet, and for a moment, I worried I had said the wrong thing. But then she whispered, "That's exactly how I feel too." And that was the moment everything shifted. Not into dating, not into anything physical, but into something undeniable, something that had a name now, something neither of us could pretend was accidental anymore. The days after that conversation felt unreal. Not dramatic, not chaotic, just different. Like the world had quietly tilted, and only Vivian and I could feel it. We didn't text more than usual. We didn't say anything outrageous, but every message now carried weight. Every good morning felt personal. Every "have you eaten?" felt intimate. Every good night lingered longer than it should, and somehow that was more dangerous than flirting. Because this wasn't playful anymore. This was two people being careful with each other's feelings. I started noticing little things, like how she would send me pictures of random things during her day, a messy desk, a cup of coffee, sunset from her car window. No captions, just pictures. And I understood them perfectly. She was sharing her world with me, inviting me into moments no one else saw. And I found myself doing the same. A selfie in bad lighting, a screenshot of a funny post, a picture of the rain on my window. We weren't saying much, but we were saying everything. Then one afternoon, my mom casually said something that made my heart nearly stop. Vivian invited us to her place this weekend. She says it's been too long since we visited. I tried to sound normal. "Oh, okay." Inside panic. Her place, her space. I'd only ever seen her in ours, or outside. I had never stepped into her world before, and suddenly that felt very personal, very intimate, very dangerous. Saturday came too fast. I dressed 3 times, changed outfits 4. Finally settled on something simple that didn't look like I tried too hard. My mom didn't notice, but I knew Vivian would, and that thought alone made my stomach flip. Her house was beautiful, minimal, warm, lighting, soft colors. Everything neat, but lived in it, smelled like her, that same light perfume she always wore. And the moment she opened the door and saw me, her eyes did that thing again. That slow, careful look, not inappropriate, not obvious, but intentional. "You look nice," she said softly. I swear. "Thanks." My mom walked in ahead of me, talking loudly like always, completely unaware of the silent electricity in the doorway. Vivian gave us a small tour, but it felt like she was showing me more than my mom. Her favorite reading chair, her balcony, her kitchen, little comments like, "I spend a lot of time here." This is where I usually sit at night. I like this corner when I need to think." She wasn't just showing me her house. She was showing me her. Then my mom got distracted helping her in the kitchen, which left me alone in the living room. And a minute later, Vivian came back, drying her hands on a towel. We stood there, just the two of us, in her space, in her silence. And something about that felt more intimate than anything that had happened before. "We've never been alone here," she said quietly. "I know," she smiled a little. "It feels different. It does." Neither of us moved closer, but the air between us felt thinner, heavier, charged. She sat on the couch and patted the seat beside her. I hesitated for half a second, then sat, not too close, but not far either, close enough to feel her warmth, close enough to notice her breathing, and suddenly I was very aware of everything: the quiet room, the soft ticking of a clock, the way her fingers rested on her lap, the way my knee was almost touching hers. She turned slightly toward me. Her voice dropped softer. "I keep thinking about what you said the other night." My heart began to race. "What part?" "The part where you said you feel calm with me." I nodded slowly. She studied my face. I didn't realize how much I needed to hear that. Her honesty was disarming. I didn't know what to say, so I just looked at her, and she looked back. And this time, the silence didn't feel safe anymore. It felt like the edge of something waiting to happen. Her eyes dropped to my lips for a second, then back to my eyes, and my breath caught. Because I knew that I had seen it in movies, in stories, in moments right before something changed forever. She didn't move. She didn't lean in. She just stayed there, looking at me like she was asking a question without words. And I realized she was waiting for me, waiting to see if I would pull away, waiting to see if I would panic, waiting to see if I would stop this. But I didn't. I stayed. I held her gaze, and that was answer. Very slowly, her hand moved, not to grab mine, not to do anything dramatic, just to rest gently on the couch, closer to my hand, barely touching, but close enough that I could feel the warmth from her fingers. And my heart was pounding so loudly I was sure she could hear it. "This is a bad idea," she whispered, but she didn't move her hand away. I swallowed. "Do you want me to move?" She shook her head immediately. "No," and that one word felt louder than anything else in the room. We stayed like that, not touching, not speaking, just breathing the same air, feeling the same tension. And for the first time, I realized something. This wasn't just attraction anymore. This was restraint. People trying very hard not to cross a line, while desperately wanting to. And somehow, that made it even more intense. Then we heard my mom's voice from the kitchen, laughing loudly, and the spell broke. Vivian leaned back slightly, cleared her throat, but her hand stayed where it was, still close to mine, still warm, still dangerous, and she whispered, almost to herself, "You have no idea what you're doing to me." After that day at Vivian's house, everything between us became quieter, not distant, not cold, but careful. Like we had both walked to the very edge of something and seen how easy it would be to fall, and now we were pretending we didn't know how close we had come. She didn't text me that night, for the first time in weeks. No "did you get home safe?" No random meme. No goodnight, and I understood why. She was trying to breathe, trying to put space between what almost happened and what was happening. But the silence? It was louder than any message she could have sent. I stared at my phone longer than I should have, waiting, hoping. Nothing came. And for the first time, I felt something uncomfortable settle in my chest. Fear, not of her, but of losing whatever this was. The next morning, she finally texted, "Morning. Hope you slept well. So normal, so painfully normal." I typed back I did. "You? Yeah. Busy day today. Busy." That word felt like a wall. By afternoon, my mind was racing with questions. Was she pulling away? Did she regret how close we got? Did she think this was going too far? I hated that I cared this much, but I did. That evening, my mom mentioned casually, Vivian won't be coming over for a while. She says she has a lot of work this week. And my stomach dropped. A lot of work. Of course, that excuse again. I nodded like it didn't matter, but inside, something hurt. 3 days passed. 4 texts became shorter, less playful, more polite. And it felt wrong, like we were strangers pretending to know each other. I missed her teasing. I missed the way she looked at me. I even missed the tension. Because this distance, this felt worse. On the 5th day, I couldn't take it anymore. I texted her first. "Did I do something wrong?" She replied almost immediately. "What? No. Why would you think that? You've been distant." There was a long pause. "Then I'm trying to do the right thing." My chest tightened. "And what is the right thing?" Her reply took longer this time. "Creating space before this turns into something we can't control." I stared at the message. Something we can't control. So she felt it too, that pull. That dangerous gravity. I typed slowly. "Do you want space? Or are you scared of what happens if we don't have it?" Another long pause. Then both. Honest. Painfully honest. That night I couldn't sleep, because for the first time I realized something important. This wasn't just exciting tension anymore, this was starting to hurt. Because caring about someone means their distance affects you. And hers did more than I expected. The next afternoon there was a knock on our door. My mom wasn't home. I opened it, and my heart stopped. Vivian stood there, looking tired but determined. "We need to talk," she said softly. I stepped aside to let her in. My hands were shaking, not from nerves, from relief. She didn't sit. She paced slightly, running a hand through her hair, which she only did when she was stressed. "I thought if I stayed away, this would calm down," she admitted. I stayed quiet, letting her speak, but it didn't. It just made me miss you more. That hit hard. She stopped pacing, looked at me. Really looked at me. "Do you know how ridiculous that is?" I shook my head slightly. "I'm trying to be responsible. I'm trying to be mature. I'm trying to remember I'm your mom's best friend." Her voice cracked slightly. "And all I can think about is you." Silence filled the room, heavy, honest, raw. She stepped closer. Not too close, but enough that I could see the conflict in her eyes. "This isn't supposed to happen. I know. You're not supposed to make me feel like this. I know." She laughed softly, but there was no humor. "Then why do you—" I didn't have an answer. "Because feelings don't follow rules." She looked at me like she was searching for permission, for reassurance, for something. "Tell me to stop," she said quietly. My heart pounded. "Tell me this is a mistake and I will walk away right now." I opened my mouth, but nothing came out, because I didn't want her to walk away. And she saw that. In my silence, in my eyes, in the way I didn't step back. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "You're making this very hard for me." And for the first time, she didn't look strong. She looked vulnerable, like someone who was losing a battle with her own heart. And I realized, this wasn't just difficult for me. This was terrifying for her. Vivian didn't leave after saying that. She stood there, close enough that I could see the tiny crease between her brows, the one that only appeared when she was overthinking. Close enough that I could feel the warmth from her body without her even touching. The house felt too quiet, too small, like the walls were listening, like the air knew something important was about to happen. "Say something," she whispered. Her voice wasn't firm anymore. It was soft, almost pleading. I swallowed. "I don't want you to walk away." The words came out before I could filter them, before I could be logical, before I could be careful. And the moment I said them, her eyes closed briefly. Like she had been holding her breath for days and finally exhaled. She stepped closer. Not dramatically, not suddenly, just one small step. But that one step erased the polite distance we had been maintaining for weeks. Now I could see the tiny details on her face, the faint shimmer in her eyes, the way her lips parted slightly when she breathed. "You have no idea what that does to me," she said quietly. My heart was racing so loudly I was sure she could hear it. "I tried to be sensible," she continued. "I told myself this was temporary. A little cry. A phase. Something that would pass if I ignored it." Her eyes met mine again. "But you didn't pass. I felt something tighten in my chest, because neither did she. She lifted her hand slowly, and for a second I thought she was going to touch my face, but she stopped midway, her fingers hovering near my cheek. Not touching, just there, like he was fighting herself. "If I touch you right now," she said softly, "I don't know if I'll be able to pretend anymore." The honesty in her voice made my breath hitch, so I did something I hadn't done before. I closed the distance for her, just slightly, enough that her fingers brushed my cheek accidentally, and the moment that happened, we both froze. It wasn't dramatic, it wasn't loud, but it felt like electricity. Her fingers were warm, gentle, and neither of us moved. We just stayed there, breathing, looking at each other like the world had narrowed down to this one small point of contact. Her thumb moved slightly, but enough to send a wave of warmth through me. "This is exactly what I was afraid of," she whispered, but she didn't pull away, and neither did I. The tension between us wasn't playful anymore. It wasn't teasing, it wasn't confusing, it was clear, heavy, undeniable. The kind of tension that comes right before a line is crossed. Her eyes dropped to my lips again, then back to my eyes. Slow, careful, asking a question without words. And this time, I didn't just stay still, I leaned in. Much. Just enough to make my intention clear. And that was all it took. She inhaled sharply, like she had lost the last bit of control she was holding on to. Her hand moved from my cheek to the back of my neck. Gentle, protective. And then, she kissed me. It wasn't rushed. It wasn't wild. It was soft, careful. Like she was testing whether this was real. Like she was afraid I might disappear if she pressed too. Her lips were warm, uncertain at first, then steadier when I didn't pull away. And in that moment, everything made sense. All the tension, all the distance, all the fear. It led here. When she pulled back, we were both breathing harder. Her forehead rested lightly against mine, her eyes still closed. "We shouldn't have done that," she whispered. But her hand was still at my neck, holding me there, like she didn't want me to move. I smiled softly. "Do you regret it?" She opened her eyes, looked at me, and the answer was written all over her face. "No," she admitted, and that honesty felt bigger than the kiss itself. We stayed like that for a long moment, foreheads touching, breathing the same air, both knowing something had changed forever. There was no going back to teasing, no going back to pretending, no going back to harmless. Then reality returned, fast, sharp, loud. "My mom," I whispered. Vivian nodded immediately, stepping back, running a hand through her hair again, trying to collect herself, trying to look normal. But there was nothing normal about us anymore. She looked at me one more time before leaving, a look full of warmth and fear and something new, something certain. "This is going to be complicated," she said. I nodded. "But worth it." She smiled softly. "Very." The house felt different after Vivian left, quieter, but not empty. Her presence lingered in the air, in the hallway, in the space between my thoughts. I touched my lips without realizing it, like I needed proof that it had actually happened, that the kiss wasn't something I imagined because I wanted it too much. But it was real, and now there was no pretending. That night, my phone buzzed, a message from her. "Did you eat?" I smiled at the screen. So normal. So her? "Yes." "You?" I tried. I keep replaying what happened. My heart fluttered. "Do you regret it?" The reply came almost instantly. "No. That's the problem." I laughed softly to myself, because I felt the same way. The next few days were strangely no dramatic tension, no panic, just quiet understanding. We didn't text more than usual. We didn't say anything reckless, but every message felt like a shared secret, something only we knew, something no one else could see. Then one evening, my mom said something that made my chest tighten. "Vivian is coming over tomorrow. She says she hasn't seen you in a while." I froze. She hadn't seen me in a while, not us. And my mom said it so casually, completely unaware that everything had changed. The next day, when Vivian arrived, she acted normal. Too normal. She hugged my mom, laughed loudly, complimented the food, but when her eyes met mine, there was something deeper there, something quiet, something only I understood. At some point, my mom went to take a call in her room, and we were left alone again. Standing in the kitchen, not too close, not too far, just enough space to behave, but not enough to... "This is harder than I thought," she murmured. "I know. I want to reach for you every time I see you." My heart skipped. "Then don't look at me like that," I whispered. She smiled faintly. "I can't help it." She leaned slightly against the counter, arms folded, looking at me with that soft expression that made my stomach flip. "We can't keep pretending nothing happened," she said. "I don't want to." Her eyes softened. "Neither do I." Silence settled between us. Not awkward, not tense, just honest. "We have to be careful," she continued. "For your mom, for you, for me." I nodded. "I know, but I also don't want to hide from this like it's something shameful." That sentence stayed with me because she was right. What we felt wasn't wrong. It was complicated, but not wrong. She stepped a little closer, still keeping a respectful distance. "I don't want to lose you," she said quietly, and that was the moment I realized something important. We weren't just dancing around feelings. We were protecting something. Something real, something fragile, something worth fighting for. Later that night, after she left, she sent me a message. "I think we should talk to your mom." I stared at the screen, my heart pounding. "About us?" "Yes. I don't want this to turn into something secret and stressful. I want to do this the right way." I read the message 3 times, because this wasn't fear, this wasn't running. This was her choosing me, openly, bravely. I replied, "Okay." And for the first time since this started, I felt calm, not nervous, not scared, just sure. The next evening, Vivian came over again, but this time the air felt different, serious, important. My mom sat on the couch, smiling, unaware of the storm about to hit. Vivian sat beside her. I sat across from them, and my heart was racing. Vivian spoke first, calm, respectful, honest. She didn't rush, she didn't panic. She just told the truth. About how this started unexpected. About how she tried to ignore it. About how she cared about me. And how she didn't want to hide it. My mom was quiet for a long time, looking between us, trying to understand, trying to process. I expected anger, shock, disappointment. But what I saw instead was confusion and concern, not hatred, not disgust. Just a mother trying to understand something she never expected. Finally, she sighed. "I never imagined this," she admitted. None of us spoke. "But I can see you're both serious." Vivian nodded respectfully. "Very..." My mom looked at me. "Are you sure?" I didn't hesitate. "Yes." Another long silence. Then she said something I will never forget. "I don't fully understand this yet, but I trust you, and I trust Vivian." Tears filled my eyes, relief washing over me. "Just promise me you'll be careful with each other's hearts." Vivian's voice was steady. "I promise." So did I. That night, Vivian walked me to the door before leaving. We stood there quietly. No fear now. No, just warmth. She smiled softly. "Hi," she said. I laughed. "Hi." And this time, when she leaned in and kissed me gently, there was no tension, no guilt, no fear, just 2 people who had finally stopped pretending. The first time we went outside together after everything changed. It didn't feel romantic. It felt risky. Vivian insisted we start small. "Just coffee," she said. "Somewhere quiet. Somewhere no one knows us." But the moment we stepped into the cafe, I understood what chapter 16 was really about. Not love, not kisses, not feelings, but the world. We didn't sit across from each other like before. We sat side by side, close enough that our arms brushed occasionally, close enough that I could feel her warmth through the thin fabric of her sleeve. And for the first few minutes, neither of us spoke, because being outside together like this felt strangely intimate and strangely exposed. Vivian kept glancing around, not nervously, but cautiously, like she was aware that this, us sitting like this, looked different now. Looked intentional, looked like something people could notice. "I didn't think this part would feel this loud," she murmured. I understood exactly what she meant. Inside the house, it was safe, private, but out here, we were visible, A waitress walked past and smiled at us. "Cute couple," she said casually, and kept walking. I froze. Vivian did too. We both turned to look at each other slowly. Neither of us corrected her. Neither of us laughed it off. Because for the first time, someone saw us exactly how we were, and it made my heart race. Vivian smiled softly, but there was something behind it. Something thoughtful. "That shouldn't have made me this happy," she admitted. I smiled back. It made me happy too. And that was when I noticed the shift. This wasn't just secret excitement anymore. This was real life pressing in. As we talked, laughed quietly, shared a slice of cake, I saw people looking, not judging, just noticing. Because Vivian was elegant, older, composed, and I was clearly younger, and together we stood out. When we left the cafe, she didn't reach for my hand immediately. She hesitated, looked at me, asking silently. I nodded, and she intertwined her fingers with mine. Gentle, warm, certain, and my heart nearly burst. But as we walked down the street, I felt it. The stares, the curiosity, the subtle double takes, and for the first time I understood what Vivian had been afraid of. This wasn't just about us. This was about how the world would see us. Halfway down the street she slowed, then stopped, her hand still holding mine. "Are you okay?" she asked quietly. I nodded, but she didn't look convinced. "This is what I was trying to protect you from." I squeezed her hand. "I don't need protection from being seen with you." Her eyes softened, but I could see the worry settling in deep heavy. That night, after she dropped me off, she didn't text like usual. And when she finally did, it was different. Today made me realize something. My chest tightened. What? A long pause. Then this won't just affect us. People will talk. Your mom's friends, neighbors, everyone. I stared at the message, because she was right. And for the first time, I felt the weight of it too. Another message came. "I don't regret us. I just don't want you hurt because of me." And there it was again, her instinct to step back, to protect me, even if it meant hurting herself. I replied, "I don't care what people think." She didn't answer for a long time, then finally, "I care, because I care about you." And suddenly, it was complicated, real, and quietly painful. The next few days felt fragile, not broken, not distant, but like we were both walking carefully around something invisible, something neither of us wanted to name. Vivian still texted me, still asked if I had eaten, still sent me random pictures from her. But there was a softness missing, a restraint, like she was holding herself back from saying what she really wanted to say. And I knew why. The cafe, the stairs, the reality of being seen. It had gotten into her head. On the fourth day, she didn't text until evening. "Are you home?" I frowned at the screen. "Yes." "Why?" "I'm outside." My heart jumped into my throat. I rushed to the window, and there she was, leaning against her car, looking up at my house like she was preparing herself for something difficult. I ran outside before I could overthink it. She smiled when she saw me, but it wasn't her usual warm smile. It was tight. "Nervous? Can we talk?" she asked gently. I nodded immediately. We didn't go inside. We stayed by her car under the quiet evening sky, streetlights casting soft shadows around us. She took a deep breath, the kind people take before saying something they've rehearsed in their head 100 times. "I've been thinking a lot." My stomach tightened. I figured. She gave a small, sad smile. "You know me too well already." She looked away for a moment, gathering her thoughts. "I don't want you to build your life around me." That sentence hit me like cold water. What? You're young. You're still figuring out who you are, what you want, who you want. I shook my head. "I know what I want." Her eyes softened painfully. "That's what scares me." She stepped closer, not romantic, not playful, just honest. "I don't want to be the reason you miss out on experiences. People your age. A normal relationship without whispers and stares." My chest tightened. This is normal to me. She shook her head gently. It shouldn't have to be this hard. I could hear it now, the thing she wasn't saying. She was trying to let me go gently, trying to convince herself it was for my own good. "Vivian," I said quietly, "are you trying to break up with me before we've even started?" Her lips parted slightly, because she hadn't expected me to say it out loud. "I'm trying to be responsible," she whispered. And I'm trying to be honest, I replied. Silence settled between us. Heavy. Real. She looked at me like she was fighting herself. Do you know how easy it would be for me to ignore all this and just keep loving you? She asked softly. My heart skipped. But I can't stop thinking about how this might hurt you later. I stepped closer. So you'd rather hurt me now? That question broke something in her expression. She looked away quickly, because she didn't have an answer, and that was answer enough. I don't feel trapped, I said gently. I don't feel pressured. I don't feel like I'm missing out. I feel happy. Her eyes met mine again, and I saw it. The conflict, the love, the fear, all tangled together. She reached for my hand, held it tightly, like she needed the contact to stay grounded. You deserve something easy, she whispered. I squeezed her hand. Maybe I don't want easy. Maybe I want you. Her breath caught. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Cars passed occasionally. The world kept moving. But we stood there, suspended in this quiet emotional storm. Finally, she said the words I knew were coming. I think we should slow down. Not stop, but slow down. And somehow, that hurt, almost as much. Because slowing down meant distance, meant caution, meant stepping back from the warmth we had just found. I nodded slowly, because I understood her, even if I didn't like it, and she saw that understanding in my eyes, which only made it harder for her. She pulled me into a gentle hug. Not romantic, not heated, just tight, protective. Like she was holding on to me and letting me go at the same time. I don't want to lose you, she whispered into my hair. You won't, I replied, but for the first time, I wasn't completely sure. Slowing down sounded simple when Vivian said it. In reality, it felt like slowly suffocating. Not because she stopped caring, but because she cared too much. And that care turned into distance. She still texted me. But now there were gaps, long ones, hours where I would stare at my phone, wondering if she was deliberately giving me space, or if she was fighting the urge to talk to me. And somehow both possibilities hurt. I started overthinking everything. If she replied late, I wondered who she was with. If her message sounded short, I wondered if she was regretting us. If she didn't call me by the little teasing names she used to, I felt the absence like a missing piece. And I hated that I was becoming this person. This anxious. This unsure. One afternoon, I saw something that made my stomach twist. I was at a bookstore cafe with a friend when I noticed her. Vivian, sitting at a table near the window with another woman. They were laughing, leaning slightly toward each other, comfortable, familiar, and my chest tightened in a way I wasn't prepared for. I knew I had no right to feel jealous. We weren't officially dating. We had slowed down. She was allowed to have friends, a life, but logic didn't stop the way my heart reacted. I didn't go over. I didn't say hi. I left, and the entire walk home felt heavy. Because for the first time, I felt like I was the only one struggling. Like maybe she was doing just fine with this distance. That evening, she texted, "How was your day?" I stared at the message for a long time before replying. "Fine." She noticed immediately. "Just fine," I hesitated, then typed, "Saw you at the bookstore today." There was a pause. Then, "Oh, why didn't you come say hi?" My chest tightened. "You looked busy." Another pause, longer this time. "She's a colleague. We had a meeting." I read the message over and over, but the damage had already been done. Because it wasn't about who the woman was. It was about how easily Vivian fit into that world. A world where she didn't have to worry about staring. A world that looked normal. I replied, "You looked happy." Her answer came quickly. "I wasn't. I was thinking about you the whole time." But somehow that didn't comfort me, because I didn't want to be a thought. I wanted to be there. The next day she came over, unannounced, and the moment she saw my face, she knew. "You're upset," she said softly. I didn't deny it. Am I not allowed to be? She stepped inside slowly. Carefully. "You are. I just wish you'd tell me instead of carrying it alone." I crossed my arms, trying to stay calm. "I don't know where I stand anymore, Vivian." Her expression shifted, concern mixing with guilt. "You stand exactly where you did before." I shook my head. "No. Before you looked at me like I was the only person in the room. Now you look at me like you're trying not to." That hit her. I could see it. "I'm trying to protect you," she said quietly. And I'm trying not to feel like I'm losing you, I replied. Silence filled the room. Thick. Emotional. She stepped closer. You're not losing me. Then why does it feel like I am? My voice cracked slightly, and I hated that it did. She reached for my hands, held them gently, because I'm scared, and when I'm scared, I pull back instead of leaning in. I swallowed. That's not fair to me, she nodded. I know. For a moment, we just stood there, holding hands, both realizing the same thing. Love wasn't the hard part, fear was. I don't want to be the only one fighting for this, I whispered. Her eyes softened immediately. You're not, then stop acting like I am. That broke the last bit of restraint she had. She pulled me into her arms, tight, desperate, like she had been holding herself back for too long. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry. And for the first time since we slowed down, I felt her again. Not careful, not distant, just her. The hug didn't end quickly. Vivian held me like she had been starving. Like the distance she created had hurt her just as much as it hurt me. Her arms were firm around me, protective, certain, and for the first time in days, I felt steady again. She pulled back just enough to look at me, her hands still resting on my arms, her eyes searching my face like she was trying to memorize every emotion there. I forgot something important, she said softly. What? You're not fragile. I blinked. She smiled faintly. I kept treating you like you would break if this got difficult, but you're still here. Still choosing me. My chest tightened, because I want you, not the easy version of us. The real one. That did something to her. I saw it. A shift, like a decision had been made. She took a deep breath. The kind that comes before a confession. I love you. The words were quiet, not dramatic, not loud, but they hit me harder than anything else she had ever said. Because this wasn't flirting. This wasn't tension. This was clear, certain, real. My heart felt too big for my chest. I love you too, I whispered. And the moment those words left my mouth, something settled between us. Like a long argument inside both of us had finally ended. She rested her forehead against mine. I don't want to slow down anymore, she admitted. I don't want to protect you from something you're willingly choosing. I smiled softly. Good, because I'm tired of being protected from you. She laughed quietly, and the sound felt warm again, familiar. She cupped my face gently, her thumbs brushing my cheeks, not hesitant anymore, not unsure. She kissed me again, soft, certain, not rushed, a kiss that felt like a promise instead of a mistake. When we pulled apart, she didn't step back this time. She stayed close. I don't care who stares, she said. I don't care who whispers. I only care that you don't feel alone in this. I don't, I said. Not when you're like this. She like she had been carrying a weight for weeks, and finally set it down. Then, let's stop acting like this is something to survive, she said. Let's start treating it like something to live. And that was the moment everything changed. Not because the world got easier, but because we stopped being afraid of it. That evening, we went for a walk again. Same street, same sidewalk. But this time, when she reached for my hand, she didn't hesitate. And neither did I. People still looked. But now, it didn't feel like pressure. It felt like background noise. Because what we had in that moment was louder. Stronger, more important. Halfway down the street, she smiled at me. You know what's funny? All of this started because you accidentally flirted with me. I laughed. And you never let me forget it. She squeezed my hand gently. Best accident of my life. Morning light slipped through my curtains in thin, golden lines, and for the first time in weeks, I woke up without that tight feeling in my chest. No anxiety, no overthinking, no wondering where I stood with Vivian. Just calm. The kind of calm that only comes when your heart finally believes what your mind has been trying to understand. We were okay, not secretly okay. Not cautiously okay, but truly okay. My phone buzzed on the bedside table. Good morning, I'm outside. I smiled before I even opened the message. She had started doing that now. showing up instead of overthinking, choosing presence over distance. I threw on a sweater and rushed out. Vivian was leaning against her car, coffee cup in hand, sunglasses resting on her head. She looked relaxed, lighter. And when she saw me, she smiled in that soft way that still made my stomach flip. "Morning," she said. "Morning?" She handed me the second cup, already knowing my order, already knowing me. We didn't rush to talk. We just stood there for a moment, sipping coffee in comfortable silence. And I realized something. This was what normal felt like for us now. Not stolen moments, not tension, just ease. "Come with me somewhere," she said after a while. "Where? You'll see." I didn't ask more questions. I just got into the car. Because I trusted her. She drove us to a quiet park by the water, somewhere peaceful, somewhere open. We walked along the path slowly, side by side, our shoulders occasionally brushing. Then, naturally, her hand found mine. No hesitation, no checking who was watching. Just warmth. We sat on a bench facing the water. Birds moving lazily across the surface. Wind brushing gently past us. And she turned to look at me with a thoughtful expression. "I brought you here because this is where I come when I need to think clearly," she said. I listened quietly, and every time I came here these past weeks, all I could think about was you. My heart softened. She reached into her bag and pulled out something small, a thin silver bracelet. Elegant. "This isn't a big gesture," she said quickly. "I just wanted you to have something that reminds you, I'm not going anywhere." I stared at it, touched, speechless. Eve fastened the bracelet around my wrist gently. Her fingers lingered there a second longer than necessary. Warm, careful, intentional. "So when you overthink," she said softly, "you can look at that and remember I chose you. Not by accident, not by mistake, but on purpose." I didn't realize how close we were until I felt her breath against my cheek. The world around us had gone very quiet. The lake, the wind, the distant birds, all of it faded into the background. Because suddenly, the only thing that existed was the space between her face and mine. My voice came out barely above a whisper. "Vivian." She didn't answer. She just looked at me, not playfully, not cautiously, but with that deep, steady gaze that made my heart slow down and race at the same time. Her thumb brushed lightly over the bracelet on my wrist. Then slowly, her hand slid up, resting gently over my hand, holding it, grounding me. "I don't think I've ever wanted to kiss someone this calmly before," she murmured. And before I could respond, she leaned in. This kiss was different, not hesitant, not testing, but slow, deep. Like she had all the time in the world. Her hand moved from mine to my waist, pulling me slightly closer on the bench. Not forceful, just enough that our bodies touched, and my breath caught in my throat. I felt her other hand come up to my face, her fingers warm against my cheek as she tilted my head slightly. The kiss deepened, still gentle, still careful, but no longer shy. And for a moment I forgot where we were, forgot the park, forgot the world. All I could feel was her, the warmth of her lips, the way her hand held me like I was something precious. When we finally pulled back, neither of us moved away. Our foreheads rested together, breathing this. Her voice came out low. "We should go before I forget we're in public." I laughed softly, my cheeks warm. But I didn't move either, because I didn't want this moment to end. The drive back felt quieter, but not awkward, charged. Her hand rested on my thigh the entire time, not moving, just there. And every time her thumb brushed slightly, my stomach flipped. When we got to my house, she didn't start the engine to leave. She just looked at me. That look again, the one that made my pulse jump. "Do you want to come over for a bit?" she asked softly. I nodded without thinking. Her house felt different this time. Not new, not intimidating, but intimate, familiar. She closed the door gently behind us, and for a second, we just stood there in the quiet hallway, looking at each other, like we both knew this wasn't just another visit. She stepped closer, her hands resting on my waist again, slow, deliberate. Her fingers pressed slightly into the fabric of my sweater as she pulled me closer and kissed me. This time there was no carefulness, no hesitation, just warmth, need, emotion that had been building for weeks finally finding a place to go. We moved without speaking, still kissing, still holding on to each other, until the back of my legs touched the couch. She broke the kiss just long enough to look at me, her eyes darker now, full of feeling. "Tell me if you want me to stop," she whispered. I shook my head and pulled her back to me. We sank onto the couch together, close. So close I could feel her heartbeat through her chest. Her hands never stopped touching me, my arms wrapped around her neck, and the kisses slowed again, deep, unhurried, filled with everything we hadn't been allowed to express before. At some point, we just rested there, foreheads touching, her arms around me, breathing quietly, the tension melting into something softer, warmer, safer. She brushed a strand of hair from my face, smiled gently. "I'm really glad you accidentally flirted with me," she said. I laughed softly. "Best mistake of my life." She kissed me one more time, soft, certain, and pulled me into her arms, where I stayed for a long, peaceful moment, feeling exactly where I was meant to be. When she dropped me off, she didn't rush to leave. She leaned slightly toward me, kissed me softly, a kiss that felt familiar now, comfortable. "Right. See you tonight?" she asked. I nodded. "Always." As I walked back into the house, I caught my reflection in the hallway mirror, and I noticed something. I looked lighter, happier, like someone who had stopped fighting their own heart. All because of one ridiculous moment weeks ago, when I accidentally flirted with my mom's best friend. Hey everyone. Thank you for watching my first video. If you loved it, don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel and hit that bell icon for more amazing Yuri videos. Drop a comment with your favorite moment, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!